The Bar Z Summer Bash is coming up again, and that can mean only one thing: another four-jaw competition. Guess I better get my name engraved on this belt, huh? Welcome back to Cloud 42, I'm James. If you've been around the YouTube machinist community very long, then you no doubt have heard about the Bar Z Summer Bash that Stan Zinkoski hosts every summer. And if you're familiar with the Bash, then you no doubt know about the four-jaw competition that happens there every year. Past winners have included Adam Booth, Keith Fenner, and last year, yours truly. So my year with the belt is just about up. It will be up for grabs at the Bash again this year. And I have one last responsibility before it goes back, and that is to engrave my name on the back alongside the previous winners. Well, here it is. This is the legendary four-jaw competition belt. It's made so it comes apart, and I have taken it apart to do some much-needed cleaning. This thing has been around for a few years, and it is just bare brass. Just polished brass, and so it has gotten a little bit gnarly over the years and needed some tender loving care. You can see I polished it up. Oh, look at that. You can see me. Hi. So I spent some time polishing this up and cleaning up the back, and it looks a lot better. There were some spots where it had some kind of crud that was starting to creep, and of course the whole thing was just tarnished from handling and kind of starting to turn more brown than shiny. And I just went over the whole thing with just Mother's mag and aluminum polish, and this brightened up the front really well. The back had a lot more kind of pitting and corrosion, and I hit that on the non-woven buffing wheel pads over on the Baldor buffer, and that cleaned that up beautifully, cleaned up the original engravings. You can see the original engravings here show Adam Booth 2015, and Keith Fenner 2016 and 2017. Our task today is to add James MacLeod with 2021. And I do not know what happened in the years in between. That apparently has been lost to history, but I do know what my name is, and I do know how to engrave it, so we're going to engrave that in this part. Now, looking at it, it looks to me like these engravings were done with some kind of an impact engraving tool. I know I've seen Keith engrave things with kind of a little buzz engraver in his plasma cam. I assume that's what this was. I don't have a tool like that. What I normally do my engraving with is a carbide, like a 20-degree carbide engraving point like this. And this spins at 12,000 RPM and will cut into just about anything. The problem is, because this is a rigid tool making a cut, you need to have the part either mapped or you need to have the part set up nice and level and flat. And this is made from some sheets of plasma cut brass, brazed together, and the back is flat-ish, but you're typically going to be engraving about 5 thou deep, and this thing is out by about 15 thou, so engraving with this kind of tool is out. So instead, the tool that I do have that will work for this is a spring-loaded diamond drag engraver, except as usual, it's not quite that simple because it doesn't actually fit in the CNC machine that I want to use. And so that's the first thing we need to address. This is my diamond drag engraver, and all this is a point, in this case ground to 120-degree point, with a diamond in the tip, and this is spring-loaded so that you can drag this tool around on a piece of metal, aluminum, steel, brass, whatever, and it will engrave markings into the metal. Now, you can see this is a TTS tool holder, so this one actually came from Tormach. Put the cap on here so it chipped the diamond. And so it has all the geometry to fit into a TTS tool holder. So there's a 3/4 inch collet with a shortened nose that fits into an R8 spindle, and then this ground surface makes a dual contact connection to the face of the R8 spindle nose, so you get a repeatable height. And this is just part of the Tormach tool system. However, I don't have the Tormach tool system on my new CNC router, which is what I want to use this tool in. I have an ISO 30 spindle that has a 30 taper with an HSD draw stud. And this one is an ER20 collet. These only go up to a 1/2 inch. I also have ER30 collet holders, but the largest collets I have for them are 1/2 inch. I could, in theory, get a 3/4 inch collet and stack up this tool holder inside of the taper tool holder and make an abomination that I could use to engrave, but it would be the only purpose I would have for having a 3/4 inch collet. There's no point in having a 3/4 inch collet in a high-speed ISO 30 spindle. It's just not something that I would ever use. So I think instead, what I want to do is replicate this geometry in a smaller tool that can go into a 1/2 inch collet. Now, all that's really going on here is, let me take the cap off here, is there's a screw in the back. Just a 3/8 set screw, and that compresses a spring which applies tension to the point. And the point itself is just a ground 1/4 inch shaft with the point on it and a screw head in the back to give it something to shoulder out on, just so that it doesn't fall out. It gives it a hard stop on the bottom. The spring goes in behind it, and the set screw applies tension on the spring. And we should be easily able to replicate that in a 1/2 inch tool. So I put together some drawings, and again, this is all we're doing. It's just a 1/2 inch tool body with the closely reamed bore to hold the tool, because any wobble in this tool tip is going to end up as error or lagging in the engraving action. We've got to have a shoulder at the right depth to hold the screw head and clearance for the spring and threads in the back. So I've got a drawing of just the body with all the dimensions we'll need, and we can go over to the lathe and make one. In fact, I've got a piece of W1 drill rod already cut and ready to go. Uh-oh. Okay, this one's already machined. We better get over to the lathe and get this done before the timeline unravels any further. This is a piece of W1 drill rod that I have cut to just slightly longer than the body. And I've got a stop in the collet here so that I should be able to face it to length and get something reliable. And let's start by just facing this end. Okay, we're going to start by drilling this end, and we're going to use this end as the reamed 1/4 inch end. And the beauty of that is that if I then screw that up, it's real easy to drill this one out larger and make the other end the 1/4 inch reamed end. We're going to start with a spotting drill, and the idea here is just to get this as close to perfectly centered as we can so that the following drills will run straight and true. Okay, now this drill is 15/64, which is under a 1/4 inch, so we should be able to drill with this and then ream the resulting hole out to exactly 1/4 inch. Okay, that's over 1.4 inches deep. Now we just need to ream it. Okay, this is a 1/4 inch machine reamer, a straight flute chucking reamer, and I'm going to just run this all the way to the bottom in one pass and extract it. And we're going to run it a little bit slower than we ran the drill.
Now this process is going okay here at first, but as I got deeper and deeper into the hole, it became clear that something was wrong. The feed pressure just kept increasing. I think maybe the chips were packing up ahead of the reamer in the hole. I'm really not entirely sure what happened, but I backed it out and cleared the chips a couple of times, and in the end, the hole ended up just a little bit oversized, and I decided I did not like the fit. Probably would have been fine, but I went ahead and just flipped the part over and started again from the other side.
Now let's check the fit using one of the diamonds. That's better. I think that is going to be good enough. Now, of course, I forgot to face this in when I flipped it around because I was thinking about the bore, so let's do that. Now, coming from this side, we need a clearance hole that is exactly 1.4 millimeters deep. So, excuse me, 1.4 inches deep. And we'll do this relatively slowly and then see how it goes. There's my 1.4. Okay, last operation here is to tap that hole 1/2 inch deep. And this is a gun tap, so it should just push right in, no problem. We'll just run this nice and slow with lots of oil, and you should be able to do this all in one pass, unless it doesn't work. And for anybody who wondered, that's this running at 10%. So that's running at 6 hertz on the brushless, or excuse me, on the 3-phase motor with the VFD with no additional gearing down. So I've gotten a lot of questions about whether the VFD on this machine will actually run slow with enough torque. Well, we just torqued a 3/8 hole with it, or we just tapped a 3/8 hole with it, no problem. So we'll back this out. Well, that is the part, and I am very, very pleased with how that turned out. Even the chamfer turned out on my little tiny flimsy chattery mill. Well, let's go ahead and put it together. First thing to go in here is the diamond point, followed by the spring, followed by the screw. I can adjust the tension somewhat. I just want to make sure I've got plenty of travel there. I'm going to go just a touch tighter because I want a good deep engraving. And that seems just fine. And we don't need a lot of stick out. In fact, the less stick out we have, the more rigid it'll be. So we'll drop that in an ER20 with a 1/2 inch collet. And I've got my torque wrench set to, what do I have it, 65 pound-feet or foot-pounds. And the max torque on these is 75. And that is that. Let's go put it in the machine and engrave us a belt. Okay, to engrave the belt, I'm going to use my new Avid CNC router. I've already got the tool holder in the spindle, and I need to fixture this. And you can see, like I said, it's not exactly flat, but I think we're going to make do. So to protect the front of it, I've got a piece of dead tree carcass here, and I'm going to lay that down, and then I'm just going to use the 1/2-inch threaded holes in the fixture plate with some clamps from my clamping kit to hold everything in place. And I'm just going to try to get this into a position where the clamping kit is going to work well, and I don't want to scratch it. So I have some pieces of copper that I'm just going to put underneath these jaws. And that's softer, and it'll also grip pretty well. Now I need to make sure that this thing is square to the world. So I'm just going to use a square, go figure. And I'm just going to eyeball this and get it pretty square. Okay, that's good, just like that. And then we'll just snug this down. The forces on this are not going to be extreme, but we also don't want it to move. So I can hear it creaking, that's the wood compressing. We'll get a good solid gronk on this. And then that is not going anywhere. Now we're going to zero up on the center of this, and of course I don't have a probe in place, so I am just going to use a scale to find the center. And we'll just drive everything in here with the pendant. And yeah, the whole machine is moving right now because I don't have the leveling feet set down on the ground. Sorry. Kind of. Okay, I'm going to call that Y0. Let's switch to X. And I'm going to call that X0. And now for Z, I'm going to set it above the part, and I'm going to call that 0, and then I'm going to run the engraving cycle just to make sure that I'm not hitting anything and to make sure that it looks like it's going to be in the correct position. Now I think it is, but I want to be sure. So if we look over here in the software, I have already loaded the program. This is what I'm going to do. I was going to try to match the font with what Keith used previously, and I really couldn't find this font, couldn't figure out what it was. I sent him an email, then didn't give him any time to respond, so we're just going to go ahead and do it, and I'm going to use my kind of branding font that I use for all the rest of my stuff for my name, and other people in the future can use whatever font they like for their names. So I am just going to hit Program Start. I'm going to hold my hand on the E-stop switch here, and we will see what happens. Now it wants me to put the tool in. Tool's already there. Okay, I think that looks right to me. So let's go ahead and set the 0. And I'll go ahead and do it up in the area near where it's going to engrave, just to get as accurate as possible. Call that 0 right there. And let's run the engraving cycle for real. Wants the tool. I hit the button, and here we go. And let me get the gantry out of the way so we don't cast shade on everything. Let's see how we did. That looks great. I am going to go ahead and run the cycle one more time just to make sure it's nice and deep. I may run it a couple times. We will see. Let's go ahead. Insert tool, hit start. Here we go. Okay, that looks great. And don't worry, I did ask my wife to proofread the program before I burned it into this. Well, that is the end result, and I have to say, I am always pleased with the results I get with that diamond drag engraver. It doesn't look exactly the same as the impact engraving that was there with the other names on the belt, but it looks really sharp. It looks shiny for now. That'll change with time, but I'm happy with that result, and that's something that I can be proud of. And if you would like to put your name on this belt, you can. All you have to do is come to the Barzy Summer Bash 2022, compete in the four-jaw competition, and take it from me, if you can. Well, that's all I've got for you today. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Feel free to subscribe to the channel and leave me a comment. I'd like to know what you think. Thank you for watching.